Right now, something important is unfolding quietly, and it doesn't announce itself with noise or urgency. It shows up as a feeling you can't quite explain yet, like the sense that a chapter is preparing to turn on its own. This story begins there, in that calm before a meaningful moment. Your soulmate has a big Valentine's Day proposal planned for you, and what makes this different is that it didn't start with a ring, a date, or a dramatic idea. It started with a realization inside them that felt steady, not rushed. A realization that you weren't just someone they loved in the present, but someone they kept seeing in every version of the future they imagined. Somewhere along the way, they noticed how natural it felt to include you in everything without trying. Decisions, plans, even small everyday thoughts began to automatically involve you. That's usually when people realize something deeper is happening, when inclusion stops being effort and becomes instinct. There were nights when they sat alone, replaying ordinary moments between you. Not the highlights, not the dramatic scenes, but the quiet interactions that revealed who you really are. The way you listen. The way you respond under pressure. The way you remain yourself even when things aren't perfect. Those moments mattered more than grand romance ever could. At a certain point, excitement wasn't the main emotion anymore. Responsibility entered the picture. The kind of responsibility that asks, am I ready to show up consistently, even when love feels ordinary, even when life is difficult? That question stayed with them longer than any fantasy ever did. While you may have been living your days normally, your soulmate was slowly becoming more intentional. They paid closer attention to how they treat you. They reflected on whether their actions matched their feelings. Commitment does that to people. It makes them more honest with themselves first. You might have noticed them becoming more thoughtful recently, maybe quieter in moments where they used to be casual. That wasn't distance. That was someone weighing something meaningful. When a person plans to propose, they don't just plan the question. They prepare themselves for the answer, whatever it may be. Valentine's Day wasn't chosen randomly. It represents something symbolic to them. Not just love, but vulnerability. A willingness to say, this is how I feel, openly and clearly. Choosing that day is their way of stepping out from emotional privacy into emotional truth. They've thought deeply about how you experience love. Whether you feel safe with surprises or prefer intimacy. Whether big gestures excite you or sincerity matters more. This proposal isn't about impressing you. It's about making sure you feel understood in that moment. There were moments when doubt crept in, not about you, but about themselves. Am I ready enough? Am I stable enough? Am I worthy of building something permanent with this person? Those doubts didn't stop them. They refined their intention. They made the decision more conscious. Your soulmate has also imagined what happens after the proposal far more than the proposal itself. The everyday life. The shared responsibilities. The disagreements. The growth. They didn't stop at romance. They moved straight into realism, and still chose you. You may have sensed a subtle grounding energy from them lately. Less scattered. Less distracted. That's what happens when someone makes an internal commitment before expressing it externally. Their priorities quietly reorganize themselves. They haven't been waiting for a perfect version of you. They've been choosing the real one. The one who exists now, with flaws, strength, uncertainty, and warmth. That choice is what gave them confidence to move forward. There's also a gentleness behind this plan that matters. They aren't trying to trap you in a moment. They're inviting you into a conversation about a shared future. They respect your feelings, your pace, your voice in what comes next. Even the way they're planning reflects that respect. They want the moment to feel calm, not pressured. Meaningful, not overwhelming. Something that feels like a natural extension of the connection you already share. If you felt like something has been building beneath the surface, it's because it has. Love doesn't always reveal itself through dramatic changes. Sometimes it shows up as steadiness, as seriousness, as presence. This proposal is the result of many quiet decisions made consistently. Choosing honesty over avoidance. Choosing depth over comfort. Choosing you again and again without needing to announce it. Valentine's Day is simply the moment they've chosen to finally speak what they've already decided. It's the point where thought becomes action, and feeling becomes commitment. And when that moment arrives, it won't feel sudden. It will feel like something that's been waiting patiently for the right time to be said. There is a quiet shift that happens after someone decides they want to spend their life with another person, and it doesn't look like excitement on the outside. It looks like focus. It looks like care. It looks like someone paying attention in ways they never did before, because suddenly, everything feels like it matters more. After that inner decision was made, your soulmate didn't rush to tell anyone. They didn't announce it to friends or test the idea out loud. They held it close. Not out of secrecy, but out of respect. Some decisions feel too important to speak before they're fully owned. This was one of those. They began noticing how often their mind returned to you during ordinary moments. While doing something routine. While making small choices. While imagining the next few years of their life. You weren't added into those thoughts deliberately. You were already there. That realization settled in slowly and deeply. With that came a sense of responsibility that surprised them. Love had always been emotional before, but now it felt directional. Like it was pointing somewhere specific instead of just existing. They started thinking less about how love feels and more about how love is lived. You may have felt this change without being able to explain it. Conversations felt a little more grounded. Their attention felt more present. Not intense, not overwhelming, just steady. That steadiness wasn't accidental. It came from someone who had stopped wondering and started deciding. As Valentine's Day grew closer, it didn't feel like a deadline to them. It felt like alignment. A moment that naturally fit what they were already carrying inside. They didn't choose the date because it was expected. They chose it because it matched the meaning of what they wanted to say. They've spent time imagining how you might feel in that moment. Not just surprised, but safe. Not just excited, but understood. They don't want you to feel swept into something. They want you to feel invited into something that already exists. There were moments when they questioned themselves quietly. Not about their feelings, but about timing. Is now the right moment in your life? Are you feeling supported? Are you feeling stable enough to receive this kind of commitment without it feeling heavy? These questions mattered to them. Because of that, they've been watching how you've been moving through your days. How you handle stress. How you talk about the future. How you respond when life feels uncertain. Not to judge you, but to make sure they're stepping forward responsibly. They've also been reflecting on themselves in a new way. On their patterns, their habits, their reactions. When someone plans to propose, they don't just think about the relationship. They think about who they are inside it. You may have noticed them making small changes. Being more reliable. Following through more carefully. Listening instead of reacting. These aren't temporary improvements. They're rehearsals for a life where their choices affect more than just themselves. Behind all of this is a quiet excitement they haven't allowed to spill out yet. Not because they're holding back joy, but because they want that joy to be shared with you first. They want the moment to belong to both of you, not to outside noise. They've thought about how to speak honestly in that moment. Not memorized lines, but clarity. They want their words to sound like them, not like something borrowed. They want you to hear certainty, not performance. There's also an awareness that once this question is asked, things shift permanently. Even if the answer takes time. Even if the conversation continues. Asking the question changes the emotional landscape. They respect that weight deeply. That respect is why they haven't rushed. Why they've taken their time. Why they've let this decision mature instead of pushing it forward on impulse. What they're planning isn't a reaction to pressure or expectation. It's a response to clarity. They know that Valentine's Day can feel loud, crowded with other people's stories. That's why they want to make the moment feel grounded. Personal. Something that feels like it exists outside of comparison. They're not trying to create a memory that looks perfect from the outside. They're trying to create one that feels right from the inside. One that you'll remember for how it felt, not how it looked. You might have sensed moments of nervous energy around them. Not anxiety, but anticipation. The kind that comes from knowing something meaningful is coming and choosing to wait until the right moment to release it. They've also accepted that they can't control how you respond. That acceptance is part of their readiness. They're not proposing to secure an outcome. They're proposing to speak their truth. That's an important distinction. It means whatever happens next is rooted in honesty, not fear. They've imagined different versions of the future, but the one that keeps returning is the one where they show up fully. Not perfectly, but sincerely. Not dramatically, but consistently. This is why things may have felt calmer between you lately. When uncertainty leaves, it takes a lot of noise with it. What remains is presence. They aren't waiting for life to become easier before committing. They understand that life doesn't pause for clarity. They're choosing to commit within the reality that exists now. Valentine's Day is simply the moment they're using to say out loud what's already been true for them privately. The question itself is only the surface. The decision beneath it has already been made. When the time comes, you may feel surprised, but you won't feel confused. Something in you will recognize the sincerity behind it. Because sincerity has been present in small ways long before the words are spoken. This part of the story isn't about suspense. It's about understanding that real proposals are rarely spontaneous. They're built quietly, patiently, through attention, reflection, and choice. And as that day approaches, your soulmate isn't thinking about whether the moment will be perfect. They're thinking about whether they're ready to be present for everything that comes after. That's the kind of intention that lasts. That's the kind of love that doesn't rush, doesn't hide, and doesn't hesitate when it finally speaks. There is a stage that comes after intention but before action, and it's one of the most emotionally revealing places a person can stand. Your soulmate is standing there now. Not in uncertainty, not in doubt, but in awareness. Awareness of what this choice truly means, and how deeply it will shape both of your lives. At this point, the proposal has stopped feeling like an event and started feeling like a responsibility. Not a burden, but a commitment to show up in ways that go far beyond romance. Your soulmate is thinking about the everyday realities that follow a yes. The mornings that aren't special. The disagreements that need patience. The moments when love has to be chosen actively instead of felt automatically. They're reflecting on how they handle pressure, conflict, and vulnerability. They're asking themselves whether they're capable of listening without defensiveness, of staying present when things feel uncomfortable, of growing instead of withdrawing. These questions don't come from insecurity. They come from respect for what they're about to ask of you. You may not see this internal work, but you may feel its effects. Their energy feels steadier. Their reactions feel more intentional. They're less impulsive with words and more careful with promises. That's because they understand that once they speak this question out loud, their words carry a different kind of weight. They've also been thinking about you in a deeper way. Not idealizing you, not projecting fantasies onto you, but seeing you clearly. Your strengths. Your sensitivities. Your boundaries. Your past experiences. They want to honor all of that, not just the parts that are easy to love. There's a quiet tenderness in this stage. They may look at you with a softness that feels different from before. Less excitement, more reverence. That's the look of someone who understands that love is no longer about attraction alone. It's about care, protection, and shared direction. Your soulmate has also been revisiting moments from your relationship that tested both of you. Times when communication was hard. Times when patience was required. They're not doing this to dwell on difficulty, but to assess resilience. They want to know that what you've built can hold the weight of what they're proposing. This is why they haven't rushed. Rushing would have been easier. Speaking impulsively would have required less courage. But they chose deliberateness instead. Deliberateness requires honesty with oneself, and that honesty is what gives this moment its strength. You may have noticed them becoming more open emotionally in subtle ways. Sharing thoughts they once kept to themselves. Expressing appreciation more clearly. Acknowledging your impact on their life. These aren't rehearsals. They're expressions of alignment. There's also an acceptance settling in for them. Acceptance that life doesn't become simpler after a proposal. It becomes more shared. More interconnected. They're ready for that. Ready to think in terms of us instead of me, not just emotionally, but practically. They've imagined what it would feel like to wake up knowing they've chosen you publicly, not just privately. That image brings them a sense of calm rather than anxiety. Calm is a strong indicator of readiness. Excitement fades. Calm stays. They've also made peace with the idea that love doesn't guarantee certainty in every outcome. They're not asking because they believe everything will be easy. They're asking because they believe it will be meaningful. This stage has required them to let go of control. They can plan the moment, but they can't plan your response. Accepting that uncertainty is part of the courage they've built. They're choosing vulnerability, not assurance. You may feel this vulnerability in the air between you. A sense that something honest is waiting to be spoken. Not heavy, not tense, just present. Like a held breath before a sentence that matters. They're also aware of your emotional history. They know you may have had moments of doubt, hesitation, or uncertainty in the past. They're not trying to override those experiences. They want to offer something steady enough to feel safe. This is why the proposal they're planning isn't meant to rush you into an answer. It's meant to open a space. A space where you can both speak honestly about the future. A space where clarity replaces assumption. They're thinking about how to express themselves in a way that feels grounded, not theatrical. They don't want to perform love. They want to live it. They want the moment to feel like a continuation of who they already are with you. This internal alignment has also changed how they view challenges. Instead of seeing them as threats to the relationship, they see them as part of the shared journey they're inviting you into. That shift matters. It means they're not proposing to escape uncertainty, but to face it together. You might sense that they're more attentive to your emotional cues. More patient when you need space. More responsive when you need reassurance. These adjustments aren't calculated. They're instinctive responses from someone who has already committed internally. They've also been considering the meaning of commitment in their own life. What it asks of them. What habits may need to change. What priorities may need to shift. They're not afraid of that change. They're preparing for it. This preparation is quiet, but it's real. It shows up in consistency, not grand statements. In reliability, not promises. In presence, not pressure. Valentine's Day is approaching, but for them, the significance isn't in the date. It's in the readiness they feel now. The date simply gives structure to something that already exists. They understand that proposing doesn't guarantee certainty, but it does guarantee honesty. And honesty feels better to them than holding something meaningful inside any longer. You may feel a sense of emotional grounding around them lately. A feeling that things are less chaotic, less undefined. That's because once someone commits internally, the emotional noise settles. This stage isn't about suspense or surprise. It's about alignment. Alignment between intention, emotion, and action. Your soulmate is no longer wondering if they want to choose you. They're considering how to honor that choice in a way that respects both of you. And when the moment arrives, it won't feel like a sudden leap. It will feel like a step forward that was always forming. Because real proposals don't begin with a question. They begin with a decision. And that decision has already been made. Something changes when intention stops living quietly in the heart and starts asking for expression. Your soulmate is feeling that shift now. It's no longer enough for them to know what they want. Holding it inside has begun to feel heavier than the risk of saying it out loud. This is the stage where resolve replaces contemplation. At this point, they are no longer questioning their feelings or their choice. What they're navigating instead is how to step forward with integrity. How to speak in a way that reflects not just love, but responsibility. They understand that asking you to step into a future with them is also asking you to trust their consistency, their growth, and their willingness to keep choosing you beyond the moment. You may notice a quiet seriousness in them lately. Not heaviness, not tension, but presence. a grounded focus that wasn't there before. This comes from someone who has accepted that their life is about to change in a meaningful way, and they want to meet that change with maturity. They've been reflecting deeply on how they show up when things aren't easy, on how they respond when emotions are high or when life feels unpredictable. They're not trying to become perfect. They're trying to become reliable. That distinction matters more than romance ever could. There is also a growing sense of honesty shaping their thoughts. They're letting go of idealized versions of love and embracing real partnership. Real partnership includes disagreements, compromises, and moments where patience matters more than passion. They're ready for that reality, and that readiness is what gives this proposal its strength. You might feel them slowing things down instead of rushing forward. That's intentional. They want to be fully present when the moment arrives, not swept up by nerves or expectation. They want to remember your expression, your words, your reaction, not just the act itself. This stage is also marked by emotional courage. Courage to be seen fully. Courage to risk vulnerability without guarantees. Courage to accept whatever answer comes with grace. That courage didn't come easily. It was built slowly, through reflection and self-honesty. They've imagined how this moment might feel for you. Not just excitement, but safety. They want you to feel grounded, not pressured. Chosen, not cornered. That awareness guides every part of how they're approaching this. There's also an awareness of timing beyond the calendar. They're paying attention to where you are emotionally, to how you've been carrying yourself, to whether life feels steady enough for a conversation this meaningful. They don't want to add weight to your life. They want to add support. Because of that, they may seem more attentive than usual, more considerate, more intentional in small interactions. These aren't gestures. They're habits forming. Habits that reflect how they intend to show up long after the proposal is over. This phase has also brought clarity about priorities. Things that once felt important have shifted. They're making space, emotionally and practically, for what they're choosing. That space-making is quiet, but it's real. They understand now that love isn't something you feel once and keep forever without effort. It's something you practice. And they're practicing already, even before asking the question. You may notice moments when they look at you with a kind of stillness. Not anticipation, not nerves, but recognition. As if they're seeing you clearly in the context of a shared future. That look comes from certainty, not fantasy. They've also accepted that no moment can perfectly capture what they feel. And that's okay. They're not aiming for perfection. They're aiming for truth. Truth spoken simply, without performance. This is why they haven't involved many people in the planning. This decision feels personal. Sacred, even. It's something they want to share with you first, not manage through outside opinions. There's also a deep respect shaping their approach. Respect for your autonomy. Respect for your voice. Respect for the fact that commitment is a mutual choice, not a test or a surprise meant to overwhelm. They're not proposing because they think it's what they should do. They're proposing because not doing it feels dishonest now. Holding back would mean hiding something real, and they no longer want to live that way. You might feel a subtle emotional closeness growing, even if nothing has changed on the surface. That closeness comes from alignment. When someone's inner world matches their outer actions, the connection feels clearer. This stage is less about excitement and more about calm confidence. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that doesn't rush. The kind that waits patiently for the right moment to speak. They're also aware that once the question is asked, the relationship enters a new phase. Even if the answer takes time. Even if the conversation continues. They're ready for that transition. That readiness shows up as steadiness, not intensity. As reliability, not pressure. As presence, not performance. Valentine's Day is approaching, but for them, the date is simply a container. The meaning is already there. The decision is already made. The heart is already committed. What remains now is expression. And when that expression comes, it won't feel like a surprise meant to shock. It will feel like something that has been forming naturally, honestly, and with care. This part of the journey is quiet, but it's powerful. It's where intention becomes action, not through force, but through clarity. Your soulmate isn't rushing toward a moment. They're stepping into a truth they've already accepted. And that truth is steady, grounded, and real. This is the space just before something meaningful is spoken. Where everything necessary has already been considered, and nothing needs to be proven. Only shared. There is a quiet completeness that settles in just before something meaningful is spoken, and this is where your soulmate is now. Not restless, not uncertain, but steady in a way that feels new even to them. The planning has slowed, not because the intention has weakened, but because everything essential has already been decided inside. At this stage, they're no longer rehearsing possibilities. They're simply living in alignment with the choice they've made. The proposal has stopped being a future event and started feeling like an extension of who they are becoming. That's why their energy feels calmer, more grounded, less pulled in different directions. They've reached a place where they're not asking themselves if this is right. They're asking how to show up in a way that honors both of you. That shift matters. It means this proposal isn't about securing a future. It's about stepping into one with intention. You may notice that they're more emotionally available without being overwhelming. They listen more fully. They respond instead of react. These changes aren't temporary. They're signs of someone who has already committed internally and is now letting their behavior catch up to that commitment. They've also come to terms with the fact that no moment, no matter how thoughtfully planned, can fully capture the depth of what they feel. And that realization has brought relief. They're no longer trying to make the proposal perfect. They're focused on making it honest. Honesty has become the guiding principle now. Honest timing. Honest expression. Honest presence. They want you to feel the truth of their choice, not the performance of it. This is also the stage where they've accepted whatever response you may have. Not with indifference, but with respect. They understand that asking for a future together means allowing space for your feelings, your pace, your process. That acceptance is a form of love in itself. They're no longer imagining your answer as something that defines them. They see it as information, not validation. That's a sign of emotional maturity. They're choosing you, not because they need something from you, but because they want to build with you. You might feel a subtle shift in how safe the connection feels lately. Less tension. Less uncertainty. That's because internal conflict has resolved on their side. When someone stops wrestling with themselves, the relationship feels clearer without anything needing to be said. They've also taken time to reflect on their own past, on what they've learned about love, commitment, and themselves. They're not carrying unrealistic expectations into this moment. They're bringing experience, humility, and a willingness to grow. This reflection has softened them, made them more patient, more understanding, more aware of how deeply words and actions can shape another person's sense of safety. They're approaching this proposal with care, not urgency. Valentine's Day is close now, but it doesn't feel like a countdown to them. It feels like a natural point of expression. Like a sentence that's been forming slowly and is finally ready to be spoken. They're not distracted by what others are doing or how other stories look. Comparison has faded. What matters now is the integrity of this moment between you. They want it to belong to the two of you, not to expectation or tradition. They've thought about the setting, yes, but more importantly, they've thought about the tone. Calm. Present. Real. They want you to feel like this is a continuation of your connection, not a dramatic departure from it. This stage has also brought a sense of peace. The kind that comes from alignment. When thoughts, feelings, and intentions finally point in the same direction, there's less internal noise. That peace is noticeable, even if it's not named. They're also aware that once the question is asked, the relationship changes, regardless of the answer. They're ready for that change. Ready to have more honest conversations. Ready to define things more clearly. Ready to move forward without ambiguity. That readiness shows up in how they handle small moments now. They're more intentional with time. More thoughtful with words. More respectful of boundaries. These aren't gestures meant to impress. They're reflections of who they intend to be. You may feel a sense of being truly seen lately. Not idealized, not put on a pedestal, but understood. That's because they're looking at you through the lens of partnership, not infatuation. They've accepted that love isn't about certainty. It's about choice. And they've chosen you without needing guarantees. That choice feels solid, not impulsive. As the moment approaches, they're not consumed by nerves. There may be anticipation, but it's grounded. The kind that comes from knowing you're about to speak something true, not perform something impressive. They're also prepared for the conversation that follows, not just the question itself. They understand that commitment is ongoing. That this moment opens a door rather than closing a chapter. They're ready to walk through that door together, at whatever pace feels right. This phase is marked by quiet confidence. Not loud excitement. Not dramatic tension. Just a steady sense of knowing. Knowing what they want. Knowing why they want it. Knowing they're ready to ask. You might sense that things feel settled in a new way. Like the connection has found its footing. That's not accidental. It's the result of a decision fully integrated into their sense of self. They're no longer holding something back. The weight of unspoken intention has lifted, replaced by readiness to share. That sharing doesn't feel urgent. It feels timely. When the moment comes, it won't feel like something sudden dropped into your life. It will feel like the next natural step in a story that's been unfolding quietly for a while. This is the part where love stops circling the idea of forever and steps into it gently. Without force. Without pressure. With respect. Your soulmate isn't trying to convince you of anything. They're simply offering you the truth of where they stand and inviting you to meet them there if you choose. That invitation is grounded in care, thoughtfulness, and a deep respect for what you share. And whatever happens next, this moment will stand as one of honesty, courage, and alignment. Because by the time a proposal reaches this stage, it's no longer about the question. It's about the life behind it. There is a stillness that arrives just before something important becomes real, and this is the stillness your soulmate is carrying now. It isn't silence born from hesitation. It's the quiet that comes when nothing inside is arguing anymore. When the decision has settled so deeply that it no longer needs reassurance. At this point, they aren't thinking about how their life might change in abstract ways. They're thinking about how it will feel to stand beside you openly, without holding anything back. They're imagining the relief of no longer carrying this intention alone. Of letting you see them fully, not just as a partner in the present, but as someone choosing a shared future. What's striking about this stage is how natural it feels to them. There's no internal rush, no dramatic countdown. Just a sense that this is the right movement forward. When a decision aligns this completely, it doesn't feel loud. It feels obvious. You may notice that their presence feels different now. Not more intense, not more emotional, but more anchored. They're not trying to impress. They're not trying to prove anything. They're simply being with you in a way that feels settled. That kind of presence only comes when someone knows where they stand. They've also reached a place where they're no longer focused on potential outcomes. They're not rehearsing reactions or imagining alternate scenarios. They've accepted that whatever happens next will be honest, and honesty is something they're ready to live with. This acceptance has changed how they see you as well. Not as someone whose approval they need to earn, but as someone whose choice they deeply respect. They're not asking to be chosen because they doubt themselves. They're asking because they want to choose you publicly and invite you to do the same. There's a sense of mutuality shaping this moment now. Even before the question is spoken, the energy has shifted from individual intention to shared possibility. It's no longer just about what they want. It's about what could exist between you if both of you step forward willingly. They're also more aware than ever of your emotional reality. They understand that this moment might bring up excitement, reflection, even fear. They're prepared to hold all of that with patience. They're not expecting a perfectly packaged response. They're expecting honesty. This is where real maturity shows itself. In the willingness to stay present even if the answer doesn't come immediately. In the understanding that love isn't proven by speed, but by steadiness. They've thought about how this proposal fits into your life, not just theirs. They don't want to interrupt your growth or overwhelm your path. They want to walk alongside it. That's why their approach feels calm rather than urgent. Valentine's Day is close now, but it doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like a moment that matches the emotional readiness that's already here. A moment that allows love to be spoken without apology or hesitation. You might feel a sense of inevitability around this, not in a dramatic way, but in a grounded one. Like something that's been forming naturally is finally ready to take shape. That feeling doesn't come from expectation. It comes from alignment. They've also made peace with the fact that commitment doesn't eliminate uncertainty. It simply changes how uncertainty is faced. Instead of facing it alone, they want to face it together. That choice is at the heart of this proposal. There's a quiet confidence in them now that doesn't seek validation. It's not about proving their love. It's about standing in it. That confidence allows them to be gentle, patient, and open all at once. They're no longer carrying the weight of, what if? They're living in, this is what I know. And what they know is that loving you has shaped them in ways they don't want to undo. It's made them more grounded, more honest, more present. This stage is marked by emotional clarity rather than excitement. Excitement will come, but clarity is what lasts. Clarity is what sustains a life together long after the moment has passed. They're also aware that this proposal is not the peak of the relationship. It's a threshold. A doorway into a deeper phase of communication, responsibility, and shared intention. They're ready to walk through that door with openness rather than expectation. You may feel a sense of emotional safety growing around you lately. A feeling that things are less ambiguous, even if nothing has been said. That safety comes from internal alignment on their side. When someone stops hiding intention, the connection feels clearer without explanation. They've accepted that vulnerability is not something to be minimized in this moment. They're allowing themselves to feel exposed. To feel hopeful. To feel human. That openness is what makes this proposal real rather than performative. They're also no longer concerned with how this moment compares to others. Comparison has fallen away. What matters is authenticity. What matters is that this feels true to who they are and what they share with you. As the day approaches, there's less planning and more presence. Less thinking and more being. They're not trying to control the experience. They're allowing it to unfold naturally. You might notice a softness in how they look at you. Not anticipation, not nerves, but appreciation. Appreciation for what you already share, regardless of what comes next. That appreciation is the foundation of what they're offering. They understand now that commitment is not about certainty of outcome. It's about willingness to stay engaged through change. That understanding has replaced fear with resolve. This final stage before the proposal is not dramatic. It's grounded. It's honest. It's quiet in the way that meaningful things often are just before they become visible. When the moment comes, it won't feel like a performance or a surprise designed to overwhelm. It will feel like a conversation that's been waiting for the right moment to be spoken out loud. And when they ask, it won't be from a place of need. It will be from a place of choice. A clear, deliberate choice to invite you into a shared future with intention and respect. Whatever your response, this moment will stand as one of truth. A moment where love was offered without pressure, without illusion, without fear. This is what real proposals look like beneath the surface. Not spectacle, not urgency, but alignment. And this is where the story opens into its next chapter, not because everything is guaranteed, but because honesty finally steps forward. That's what part 6 holds. Not an ending. A beginning spoken with clarity.